Welcome to this interview with Dr. Mark Sirett, whose headquarters is in Kingston, Ontario, and who is the composer of the piece that we're looking at today, Buona, Make a Joyful Noise. So we are going to talk to Mark about some of his background, about this piece as well, and how wonderful that this is part of the new series with Cypress, Songs for the Sanctuary, a piece that church choirs, I think, can very readily and easily grow to love and sing well. So, welcome, Mark.
Thanks
And
so
it is
much,
a
Joy.
delight to see you in your home space. None of us are moving too much these days.
No, that's for sure. I've become very comfortable being at home.
We're recording this during our maybe the ends of our COVID times.
Yeah, let's hope so.
So
It's
I
been a
am,
difficult time.
what, yeah, I am wondering about your journey as a composer. What is your background?
Well, my role as a composer was something that I didn't really move into until I was in my late 30s and into my 40s. And I did a lot of keyboard work and primarily trained as a pianist and an organist. But I started a theory degree at the University of Alberta and taught theory for quite a number of years. But as a composer, I felt that when I was going through school, that unless you embraced atonality, um, you didn't have anything particularly valid to say, especially if you were interested in tonal music, which I was. And I discovered that the more that I worked with choirs, really the tonal language is something that is absolutely imperative for singers. We don't have a keyboard like you see in behind where you can use your fingers to find the pitches, unlike a clarinet that has fingering that will determine what the pitch is. So I realized that there was something inherently um, necessary in tonal music that would be adaptable to the voice. So initially I started writing some things for church choir, and then since then have branched out into all kinds of different voicings.
Mhm.
I just retired from a group of choirs here in Kingston called Cantabile, and that's a graded program right from children age 6 through to 2 adult choirs, and a few of them equal voice choirs. So it's been an ideal opportunity for me to be able to experiment with all those different voices and really uh, work with all of those different instruments.
Mhm. I think you have been commissioned quite a bit in Canada and around the world, probably.
I have,
And
yeah, I've been very fortunate. I think I probably have in the neighborhood of 200 published compositions at this point.
yeah.
Here in Canada, the US, with Boozy and Hawks and Hal Leonard and Alliance, Oxford University Press, and a few in Europe as well.
Oh, it's so wonderful that you're also with Cypress. That's so great.
Yeah,
What about the background to this piece itself? What was your inspiration for this piece?
sure. A number of years ago, I was fortunate to have uh, a mini sabbatical from the choirs here in Kingston. And during that time, I was able to travel to Ghana and do some volunteer work there for about a month. And I found the time there to be um, very challenging, but also incredibly inspiring. And to be immersed in their music and knowing that it was such a fundamental part of their daily lives
Mm.
and such an expression of joy for them. Um, and so when I came home, it proved to be the inspiration for a couple of compositions, and this being one of them.
Mm.
Uh, I also had an opportunity to work at the Summer Institute of Church Music in Whitby, And this piece is dedicated to Ken Inkster, who had been the registrar for the Institute, and just such a wonderful, warm, loving person, and
Mm.
a fine musician in his own right. He was an organist in Alliston, Ontario, and very active in the Royal Canadian College of Organists. And so I dedicated the piece in honor of Ken and also the Institute. So that was the inspiration for the piece,
Nice.
that I think combines some traditional elements, but also some elements that definitely were inspired by African rhythm.
Yeah, melody, not necessarily from what you had heard in Ghana.
No, definitely not. It's
Okay.
all original music,
Okay.
but inspired by African song
Mm.
and dance. I mean,
Mm.
everything in Africa is about dance
Mm.
and song. It's the two are combined.
Yeah.
Um, they're never separated.
One of the things I really appreciate about this piece is how we can dip our toe into the language. And
That's
it's
right.
not a huge amount of language, but we get to use the Swahili and
That's right.
in the expressing the main point of the song.
And it's very accessible, the language. It's
Mm.
repetitive enough, so it's easy to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I suggest with any choirs that are singing this piece, in fact, I think that I did it, I may have done it at the Institute a few years ago. And I would encourage that when the African song enters, that djembe be added,
Ah, good
or
idea.
and other instruments if you African instruments if you've got them.
Yeah, great
I think
idea.
I think that's one of the essential elements that adds the real African
Hmm.
character to the
Hmm.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the keyboard part is set up so that it's really more of a keyboard or piano part rather than necessarily organ. So it's already not necessarily traditional
Hmm.
in sound.
Hmm.
The opening is maybe a little bit more traditional with the use of the text and the voicing, but then the ending really should be a launch into a much more um, rhythmic and joyful expression
Hmm.
of praise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there any other parts to this piece that you thought of creatively that you want to point out to us who are making it happen?
I'm thinking that looking for as much contrast as possible, there are opportunities to sing legato, and certainly at the very beginning, there's this fairly strong uh, uh, expression of praise, but then there's a contrasting legato passage. But I think that the entry into Buena Asifiwe needs to be um, a lovely surprise for the listener, not for the choir, but a, a lovely surprise sonically for the members of the congregation or the audience, whoever is hearing it, and to really enhance that with even the possibility of some movement from the choir would be terrific.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of variety in things you've done here with dynamics, with tempo changes, alternating higher, lower voices.
Right. Um, and I think that that's one of the ways to keep interest in any piece. I tend to do a lot of contrast of upper and lower voices,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly with the lower voices, especially knowing that there are so many church choirs nowadays that don't have very many tenors and basses.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a fair bit of unison writing, and what little divisi appears, the tenor range is pretty modest,
Mm.
and it doesn't go overly low either. So I try to keep that in mind for a lot of smaller churches. that maybe have a limited number of tenors and basses,
I
limited
think
number of singers.
I think this has been very effective with this piece. And the reason why it drew me for this series too
Oh, great.
is
Yeah.
how it would work with our regular church choirs.
And even the descant part, it could easily be done by one singer as a
Hmm,
solo,
excellent.
rather than necessarily taking a lot of voices from the soprano line.
Right.
If you don't have enough voices to feel free to assign it to one voice, and I think that
Yeah.
that would work very,
Yeah.
very well.
Yeah. That's a great idea. It's a wonderful expression of this psalm. It's a wonderful expression of our global community of the church. And
Right.
I think it is very, we will use it in many instances throughout the church year. Is there anything in particular you want to address with that, though, as you were writing it? Did you want to have it as an expression of something in particular?
I think if anything, it's maybe an expression of the fact that our choral community has really embraced global music,
Hmm.
especially over the course of the last 25 years. And it's been wonderful to see how that's also been embraced by the church. And I think that it's really important to be aware of other means of worship
Hmm.
that are not necessarily the conventional mainstream churches that
Hmm.
we associate with Western church music,
Hmm.
and to be open to that, and open to other languages.
Hmm.
Um, and I found that as a composer, but also as a conductor, to be incredibly inspiring, to know that there's this wealth of repertoire available now that we never knew about a few decades ago. And it's, I think, this wonderfully revitalizing, not only for the choral community, but also for the church community, to know that it is a worldwide faith-based community,
Hmm.
and it's not just regional or
Hmm.
countrywide, but
Hmm.
in fact, it's global.
That I thank you so much for those words and also for this piece of music that will enter into our church choirs on a more regular basis, I hope.
Such a pleasure. Thanks so
Such a
much, Joy.
pleasure. Thank
Yeah,
you, Mark. Goodbye
pleasure.
for
Take
now.
care.
Please
Bye.
see this piece on the Cypress site under the Songs for Sanctuary series. You can listen to it, you can watch it, and we hope that it will be useful for you with your church choir.